On May 24th, 2013, 8-year-old Gabriel Fernandez died after months of unimaginable torture at the hands of his mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isario Aguirre. Gabriel was beaten with metal batons, forced to eat cat litter, burned with cigarettes, and locked in a cabinet for days on end. His teacher reported the signs, and his classmates told their parents about the bruises they saw, and still nobody stepped in. Gabriel died in agony. When that trial was over, Aguirre was sentenced to death, and Pearl got life in prison without the possibility of parole. But was that justice? Today, I'm here to argue that the death penalty is not only justified, it is essential. Some crimes are so horrific and so beyond rehabilitation that death is the only just punishment. Eliminating the death penalty would allow the worst offenders to live at the expense of their victims and of our society. We must keep the death penalty in place because it provides justice for the victims, it prevents dangerous criminals from harming again, and it deters future violent crimes. And Gabriel Fernandez isn't alone. According to the FBI's 2023 Uniform Crime Report, there were nearly 20,000 murders in the United States that year, including 1,000 children killed by abuse and neglect. Now, let me introduce to you Kenneth McDuff. In 1966, he was sentenced to death for killing 3 teenagers, but in the 70s, after the Supreme Court temporarily banned the death penalty, his sentence was commuted to life, and then he was paroled, and after being released, he went on to rape and murder at least 9 more women before finally being recaptured and executed in 1998. Or you could take the case of Richard Davis, who in 1993 kidnapped and murdered 12-year-old Polly Klaas. And he had a long history of criminal activity, and he had been released early, actually, from prison when he was serving a time for kidnapping. So her case shocked the nation, but Davis is still alive today, and he's sitting on death row more than 30 years later with no execution in sight. These aren't just stories, they're preventable tragedies. According to Gallup's 2022 poll, a majority of Americans, 54%, still support the death penalty for people convicted of murder. And that's because we recognize that true justice sometimes demands the ultimate penalty. Critics argue that life without parole is enough, but in reality, our system gives more protection to murderers than to victims' families. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, nearly 20% of inmates serving life sentences for murder had previously committed serious violent crimes, and some went on to reoffend while in prison or after early release. Inmates serving life, they still get free medical care, meals, they get contact with the family, and they even get free education. And meanwhile, these families of the victims are left with trauma and many unanswered questions. Why should the killer of a child get to grow old? And the cost? Opponents of this say that the death penalty is too expensive. And it's true, but it's only because of the endless appeals and the legal delays from the criminals. The Death Penalty Information Center found that most of the cost difference, an estimated $1.2 million per inmate, comes from litigation. It's not from the execution itself. If we streamline the appeals process, the costs drop dramatically. The answer isn't to abolish the death penalty, it's to fix it, and here's how we can do that. We can apply it to the worst of the worst, people such as serial killers, torturers, terrorists, and repeat violent offenders. 2, we can cap appeals at 5 years with fast-tracked reviews using modern scientific forensic science. And 3, we mandate DNA testing to confirm guilt and protect the innocent. We now have the tools to make the death penalty more accurate and fair, and according to the National Institute of Justice, DNA evidence has exonerated 375 people, but it also has confirmed the guilt of thousands more. Technology should strengthen the justice and not eliminate it. And yes, the death penalty does deter crime. In a 2006 study by researchers Nasi Mokin and Kaj Giddings at the University of Colorado, research shows that executions have a significant deterrent effect on homicide rates. They also found that commuting death sentences increased murders. That's not just punishment, it's prevention. These victims never got the chance to live their lives. They never got to say goodbye to the loved ones or celebrate a birthday free from pain. But their killers, they got trials, appeals, defense teams, protections, and that's not justice. We must retain the death penalty, not out of revenge, but out of necessity, morality, and truth. And some crimes are so vile that the only punishment is death. If we abolish the death penalty, we will tell future victims that their lives don't matter enough. But if we reform and we preserve it, we're telling them we will remember you, we will fight for justice, and we will not let evil win.